So once again, good evening, everyone. So yesterday's session, we spoke a bit about EBITDA. So do you all remember what did we talk about EBITDA before we, go into the deep analysis and double click EBITDA? Just wanted to hear from you all.
Yes, EBITDA is earning before interest, tax, and amortization, which is nothing but depreciation.
Okay, good. At least the terms you have mentioned correctly, but earnings before that terms you have defined very good. That's okay. We'll dive deep into it. Yeah. Anybody else wants to say anything else?
Yeah.
It's
So
the
you
balance
talked.
after the revenue minus cost minus the operating expenses. That's it.
Wonderful. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Anybody else? What it gives us? Why do we want to, look at EBITDA? What it gives us?
That's the actual sort of margin on the hand, right? So that is what gets left over on your hand, right?
Yeah,
So
so operating efficiency. So
operating.
when we want to check the operating efficiency, EBITDA is the lever for us. Okay, so now I'll just share my screen. Geeta, if you can make me co-host, then I can, share the screen. Okay, thank you. Okay, let me know when my screen is visible to everyone. Okay, good, good. Thank you so much. So why in the boardroom people are talking about EBITDA? Earlier, when long years back, people used to talk only about the profits or net income. But then this term came, EBITDA. Why we want to talk about EBITDA? The major reason why people want to talk about EBITDA is that this is one metric which helps us to compare the operational efficiency. When we are talking that my business is running well or not, what do I want to see? I want to see that what is my EBITDA. So this is one number which helps us. So today we are going to, we'll talk about what is EBITDA. So this will be our flow for today. Then why these, CEOs in the boardrooms just talking about EBITDA. Then we'll take a real world application and we'll talk what is really the power of EBITDA. So EBITDA we have heard till, yesterday and today we are hearing a lot about EBITDA. But then what is adjusted EBITDA? So this is a new term which we are going to understand today. Then we'll do a short case study. Then how does EBITDA plays a role in valuation? When do we want to valuate companies? Whenever mergers and acquisitions are happening, then we want to do the valuation of the companies. And then how EBITDA plays a great role that we will learn. And then what are the places where EBITDA is not able to give us the complete clear picture. Then what are the complementary metrics which can help us, which strengthen the EBITDA. So this, other metrics combined with EBITDA give us a complete balanced scorecard. How we can, evaluate and get a clear picture. Then we will talk about the Q&A. So please note down all your questions. As Geeta mentioned, today we'll take all the questions in the end. So as you all mentioned, just now we talked about, EBITDA, and EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So let us start from the beginning. Net income. When we get the net income, yesterday we did the P&L, and that was the last income on our balance sheet. So today we are starting from that net income, and what we are doing, we are adding amortization, depreciation, taxes, interest expense, and EBITDA. Yeah, Jasurya ji, you can mention your question in the chat.
Madam, formula is earning before interest, tax, and depreciation. You are summing up income, interest, taxes, and you are calling it EBITDA here.
Yes, yes. Earnings before means the earnings before deducting the interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Okay?
Yes, so then why are you summing up? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Means without we are not.
We are
It is, yeah. We are not subtracting this. Okay? Is it clear, Jasurya ji?
I will hold my question. Please continue,
okay.
madam.
We'll come to it.
I think I will understand it later.
Yeah. You will. Definitely. So this we are talking about the net income. Why we are adding this? Because if we look at the interest is not going, is different for different companies. Tax structure is different. We'll talk more about each of the element now. And whenever we are talking about EBITDA, it isolates the core operating performance. Why? What it is stripping away? Financing decisions. Why financing decisions? Because the capital structure, as you were talking about, what rate am I getting my debt? Is it a high rate or is it a low rate? So that would, imply whether it is a good decision or a bad decision. What rate am I getting the debt at? Am I able to source the debt at a lower rate? How the financial institutes are viewing my company. So now we are trying to understand depreciation and amortization. When we talk about depreciation, do you know about depreciation? Yes, no, maybe. Just give me a thumbs up. So whenever there is any asset, we try to divide its life into, the useful life, and we are dividing the cost into that life. What happens when we are trying to do the depreciation? It reflects the wear and tear, the usage, or the obsolescence of assets like, machinery, vehicles, building. Similar thing when we are applying to intangible assets, like which are patents, trademarks, or software, then it is known as amortization. How are we, what are the different accounting methods by which we take care of the depreciation and amortization? So normally in some companies we use a straight line method, or there is a declining. There are few other methods also how we calculate the depreciation, but normally it's a straight line. When we talk about a straight line method, means if we are taking the life as 10 years, I'm just taking an example, and the cost is say 100. So each year the depreciation would be 10. So this is the straight line method. And for amortization also, it is the same thing. Now, both, whether it is a depreciation or amortization, what happens? It provides a tax shield. How it is providing a tax shield? Because from the taxable income, the depreciation and amortization are reduced. Hence, it provides a tax shield. Is it clear? Give me a thumbs up. Not clear? See what happens from the net income, normally just take your example. On what income you pay your tax? Your total income you pay the tax. But in the case of corporates, what happens? The taxes that the corporates pay is that from the income, they depreciation and amortization are subtracted, and then you get the income on which the tax is applied. So this kind of provides a tax shield. Clear? So understanding depreciation and amortization, that is why it's very important for evaluating a company's performance. These are non-cash expenses, and analysis of a company becomes much better because it gives us the picture of how much cash the company is actually generating and how well it is doing financially. So if we look at the conclusion, D&A, as it is called, it plays a significant role in financial reporting and analysis. So means it is able to give, it's a kind of a report card of the financial health of the organization. If you are able to accurately account for these, then it gives a clear picture of the organization's profitability as well as operational efficiency. Clear? Can we move forward? Now coming, thank you for that thumbs up. So why people in the boardrooms they talk about EBITDA? Why? Well, what is the importance and why everyone is talking about EBITDA? So as we we are learning yesterday also and today also that this is one metric which gives us the operational performance. So what is the true operating efficiency of an organization? We are able to get that. And then it removes the non-operational noise. Like if you have a car, you have taken some loan on the car and you are operating that car. So how your engine is running, is it dependent upon your loan? Yes, no, maybe. Is the question clear? So you want to buy a car. So you bought a BMW. And when you bought a car, you took loan for buying that car. So now you have a loan on the car and your car is running. And then your engine efficiency is there for the car. Is the engine efficiency in any way related to the loan of the car that you took?
No.
Not at all. So this EBITDA removes this non-operational noise. That my engine is running, that is my operation efficiency. But have I taken a loan or have I, financed through my own cash? I did not need cash, for loan for buying my BMW because I had sufficient cash. So removing that noise and just looking at the operational efficiency. So that is the reason people want to focus on EBITDA, because this gives us the operational clarity. Now, second thing, it lets you compare the companies fairly. There are two companies, Company A and Company B. Company A borrowed a lot of money and Company B did not borrow. And their profits, they are totally different. Even if their businesses are, the business models are the same. What EBITDA gives us, this example I'm going to show you in the next slide also. So EBITDA is able to compare such companies. That what is my capital structure? When we talk about capital structure, it means in an organization, if my total, my debt plus equity is 100 crores. So is my debt 20 and equity 80? or is my debt 80, equity 20? So it is, you are able to compare those companies. Then that also, not only the capital structure, but the tax strategies. Because tax is what government is charging. Corporations have no role in that. So just it is stripping away that tax strategy also. Thirdly, and this is a really very big one, because banks decide whether they have to lend you money or not, which is debt serviceability. If we ignore the debt payments for a second, how much money does your business actually make? That's very important. If the answer is healthy, then you will get the loan. Otherwise, no. So this debt serviceability is done by debt to EBITDA ratio. It is said that if the debt to EBITDA ratio is less than 3, then generally your investment grade is good. And if you cross 5 times, then the lenders, the covenants, they have concerns and they downgrade your rating. So in an organization, it is the responsibility of the CFO to monitor this ratio for a good reason. Agreed? This point is clear. Debt serviceability. Yes, please show me a thumbs up. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, it's a combination of all these components. Yes, yes. Let's, okay. Okay, very good. So finally, fourth one, when the company wants to buy another company, or when some investor is looking, to buy the companies, then they use EBITDA to find out whether it is worth buying or it's not worth buying. So if at all you have any question comes to your mind, you can just put it in the chat. I'll monitor the chat as well. So it is the formula that, EV means enterprise value. So what is enterprise value? It's EBITDA into multiples. So multiple, we are going to, talk more about it going forward. This forms the foundation of the mergers and acquisition. And any strategic transitions, any strategic transaction that happens, it is related to EV. It can be a minority investment, that you are making into an organization, or full acquisition. So the multiple, I would say that the multiple that we have mentioned, EBITDA into multiple, this multiple is market driven. And EBITDA is within your control. Is it clear? Yes? Show me a thumbs up. It looks like, I understand it's bit,
No, can you please repeat it again, ma'am?
Okay, sure. So why we are talking about, why we want to know about EBITDA, why CEOs want to talk about EBITDA. See, operational clarity. When you know about the EBITDA, as I mentioned, you are able to decipher that your car's engine is working in a good condition. It's not related to your loan. The operating efficiency is good. You are able to get the operational clarity. Then you are able to compare. That we will go in the next slide. We will double click this, all of these. Okay. And then we will dive deep also. That what is a capital structure? Debt to equity ratio is known as the capital structure. So different companies will have different debt, different equities. So we are able to put aside that and able to compare the companies. Then is the organization able to service the debt? That we can check by debt to EBITDA ratio. If the multiple debt to EBITDA ratio is less than equal to 3, it means the company is able to service the debt and is a healthy, financially healthy company. And talking about company valuation, why do we want to value companies? Just put it in the chat box. Why? What is the need to value companies? Very good. Attract investors. Whenever we want to sell a company, whether we want to sell a minority stake or a majority stake or full acquisition, then it is important that what is your company's valuation. That for calculating the valuation, EBITDA is a key term. Okay, now it's okay, Ravi? Okay, good. Thank you. So now we are going to, talk in detail about each of these now. So it will become more clear as we proceed. So let's look at, two companies are there. Company A and Company B. Company A has high debt. Okay? Company B has low debt. And if you look at the top, it says that case study, manufacturing company comparison. What does it mean? The company A as well as company B, both the companies are in manufacturing. Clear? I'll go very slow. So company A brings in 500 million in sales. Okay? But it only keeps 20 million as the profit. Net income is the profit. Yesterday we did it. So 20 million is the profit. And if we look at company B, it brings in 480 million, which is slightly less than company A, but keeps 60 million as the profit. Tell me which company is good, A or B? Just put it in the chat. So only two people. Yeah, everyone is writing. Very good. So what I will say, no, not so fast. Don't give your replies so fast. So we have to calculate the EBITDA. That is important. So now you look, if we strip out, the loans, taxes, and accounting entries, company A is generating EBITDA of 100 million, whereas company B is generating EBITDA of 95 million. So they both are almost identical. Do you all agree? Yes? No? So what happened? Company A जो है high debt as it is written, company A borrowed a ton of money to grow. Big loans, naturally big interest payments. They ate into their profit because they have to repay the loans. But their actual business, like running a machine, I would say, it's running very good. It's 100 million. Whereas company B just, happens to have a low debt. So this raises a very, I would say, a critical question. When you report your performance to your board at CEO level, you will have to do that. So then are you presenting EBITDA with the side of net income or not? So this is the importance of EBITDA. That if you do not do that, your board will get a distorted view of operational performance relative to peers with different capital structures. Is it okay? Now, is it making sense to you?
Just a
If
question
you
over here. Like company B has a net income of $60 million, right?
yes.
Like so over here, like this net income would be in the pocket of
See what happens, company B has a high debt. Net income, how we get? we have to pay the interest, we have to pay, the interest would be very high in the case of company A.
Correct.
So when it paid
Correct.
all that interest, the net profit that remained was only 20 million. But operational
Okay.
efficiency of both the companies are
Similar.
similar. Same thing. As we talked, always remember, that's why I'm giving a very simple example. Engine of a BMW. You have a BMW, but you have taken with a huge loan. So you are paying that loan also. But the other has taken from his own money. But the efficiency of the engine remains the same, though the profit may vary. So net income insight is that net income makes company B look better, but EBITDA reveals companies have similar operating strength. Is it good with everyone? Good. Okay to move forward? Good. Thank you. So as we move forward, by the end of the session, I'm quite sure you will be able to understand. If not, then we'll do, next day we are meeting, we'll do a quick revision. Okay. So now, till now, we were talking about EBITDA. But now we are going to talk about adjusted EBITDA. Means it's just kind of, adding a twist. If EBITDA tells you how the core business is performing, adjusted EBITDA tells us how it performs in a normal year. See, you have a business. You say you are running a restaurant. And this year, you had to pay, 10 lakhs or 50 lakhs of rupees to settle a lawsuit from a customer who slipped on a wet floor. But this is a kind of one-off expenditure. Not every year people are not going to slip and you will have to pay money. So what adjusted EBITDA does is, whatever are the one-off expenses, it removes those expenses so that you get a clear picture. Is the definition clear? Good. So what are the reasons? What are the common adjustments? So I've just listed the common ones. Like a company fired a CEO. And once a CEO level person is fired, they get a severance pay, which may be 6 months salary or a 1 year salary, which would be very high. So severance or restructuring pay, it's one time, non-recurring. Sometimes people may get stock-based, compensations, ESOPs. So this is one time and it is non-cash. So this may also distort your comparability because it's a kind of one-off adjustment. Then some lawsuit comes to you, legal settlement. Then there are certain, impairment charges. Somebody is not paying, and then you have to write off such expenditure. Then there are loss and gain on certain assets. The company sold few assets, which is only one time. Once it has sold, next year that revenue will not come up. Then there are certain acquisition cost. If at all, the company bought something. So that cost is also temporary, which is one-time cost. So with adjusted EBITDA, we are able to kind of bring a normalized operating performance as if a company ran a typical year without any disruptions. Is this point clear?
Yes.
Very good. So there is a rule of thumb, if adjustments exceed 20 to 25% of the reported EBITDA, so then what happens? Then the evaluators, they kind of push back. They say that, this is not a right way. Jasurya ji, yes, you have a question?
Yes. Ma'am, I understand these adjustments. I was under the impression that whatever happens during that financial year, I would be thinking that I need to account all of these under operational expense and then derive the EBITDA. But you're telling that no, these are not regular monthly recurring or yearly recurring operational expense. These are one-time settlements or one-time things. That's why you are calling it separately and you are adjusting it again after the EBITDA calculation. Am I
Right.
correct, madam?
Yes, yes. Adjusted EBITDA. So what happens,
Okay.
when a company is going out for a sale or for any M&A activity, then at that, I will just, just hold on your question for a while. And when we proceed in the next slide, you will get your answers. Okay, this is first we will do an exercise. This you have to do. Just work out, calculate the EBITDA, calculate adjusted EBITDA, and why is the adjusted EBITDA important for valuation? I'll give 2 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Put the figures in the chat. First, give me the EBITDA.
Madam, you have already given operating income. Ah, I see.
Some
So,
things I may have added to confuse you people.
uh,
Okay. So apply your, apply your learnings, I would say.
Ma'am,
So
what
don't go by
D&A?
whatever is given. There may be certain elements which are not required also.
Ma'am, what is D&A?
Depreciation and amortization. Wow, I am impressed. EBITDA is 60. 60 is correct answer. So everyone has got 60, I think. Lalita, correct, correct. And Jaisurya ji, you can have a look once. 60 is correct. Now you calculate the adjusted EBITDA. So once you do something, then things will become clear for you. I understand, understanding financial concepts. Maybe you would have read a few years earlier in your life. So just bringing that pieces back to you. It's bit complicated, but slowly it will just seep in. Very good. Adjusted EBITDA is correct. 67.3. Wonderful. Very good.
Shouldn't this be minus of the EBITDA, the adjusted one?
What we did in the last slide.
Yeah, one-time payment, right?
Yeah. Adjusted EBITDA is EBITDA plus the adjustments.
Oh, thanks.
Ma'am, I will look for your answer on how that 60 million EBITDA has come, madam.
Okay. Okay, everyone I think has done. Shall we move? Though we took 4
Yeah,
minutes,
the
but it's
formula.
okay. Yeah. Good. Okay. You can have a look at the answer.
Ma'am, what is 31.5 million, madam? Where did that come from?
Net income. If you look at this slide, we have the net income of 31.5. You remember the formulas, what we said in the
Ah.
beginning. EBITDA is net income plus interest plus taxes plus depreciation plus amortization. Is this, just remember the formula, simple formula. And then two
Ma'am,
formulas you
that-
have to remember. Adjusted EBITDA is EBITDA plus adjustment.
Ma'am, I followed yesterday's formula, madam.
From yesterday also you can do. It will be the same.
It is not
So-
coming the same.
Listen, I'll tell you.
See,
200.
200.
If you remember what we said for 200 minus 80 is the gross margin, 120. You get it? 120 is the gross margin. And above the line, EBITDA is 120 minus 60. That also you will get. Okay. So it's the same thing. So that's what I'm saying. Don't get confused by operating income and other things.
Perfect, madam. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So now we were talking about, now I think it made some sense to understand what is EBITDA and what is adjusted EBITDA. When we do a question, is it making it more clear? Yes. Good. So when we are talking about enterprise value, enterprise value is when we are doing the valuation of the companies for mergers, for acquisition, for buying a small stake, minority, majority stake. So then we are trying to, what we are trying to do? We are trying to calculate the enterprise value. So enterprise value is equal to adjusted EBITDA into the multiple valuation. So this multiple valuation is a standard figure. This will depend on what is the company, what is the revenue, what is the stability of the company, is, the recurring revenues available with the company or not. So there are multiple things that are, used to derive the valuation multiple. So in this case, the industry matters. Why the industry matters? Think about it like a real estate. If you want to buy a house in Mumbai, so cost per square feet is much more than if you want to buy a house in any rural area. Yes, you agree? Thumbs up. So it's not because that house is better. But if you want to buy a house at Nariman Point, that will have much higher value than the house which you are going to buy, say a small suburb in Navi Mumbai. Why is that high? Because I will tell you, Jasurya, just hold on for a while. I'm coming to that only. This multiple depends upon that location has what is the growth potential and what is the demand. Same thing applies to companies. So if there are now, companies which are SaaS based and cloud. the multiple is 10 to 15 times. Why? Because these are high growth companies. The revenues are recurring and stable. So the multiple is in the range of 10 to 15 times. So these are multiples are calculated. Individuals are not calculating the multiple. These are standard multiples which I would say the top consulting companies looking at the entire analysis, they are bringing about these ranges. And in this range, whether a company will have 10 or 15, there are specialist M&A, consultants. If at all your company wants to acquire another company, you will not do it. You will hire equity firms, P firms. So those P firms will calculate that what is the exact multiple of this, in a company that we want to acquire. These are general guidelines that if at all it's a technology company, so they will have a good growth potential. There is a probability of scalability. So it will be 8 to 12 times. In the case of healthcare, there is a recurring demand, defensive, so 7 to 10 times. Manufacturing is 5 to 8 times. Because manufacturing is a mature business and very, very capital intensive. Retail, it's only 4 to 6 times. So if you want to improve the revenues in the case of retail, what do you want? What do you need to have? You need a big retail space. All the items on the shelf. Take the example of Big Bazaar or any such. If they want to improve the sales, they will have to add many SKUs. They will have to add the shelf space. Hence, a big investment. So the multiple is low. So now if we look at, using our earlier tech company example, and the adjusted EBITDA is $67.3 million. So if at all this company is a SaaS based, so we taking that, example, the multiple is 12. So the value roughly comes to 808 million. So that's what someone would have to pay to buy this company. This enterprise value gives us the valuation. So for this valuation, EBITDA is the engine and the multiple is the market's vote of confidence. So now these pieces that we were studying, they are coming together. So now it's making sense. Yeah, thank you, Sridhar. For all others also, is it making sense? So is this multiple a global value? So it is globally the multiples are there, but these multiples would vary from the company to company. Multiples are there. The band would be the similar. But yes, the individual company for this company, company X, the multiple would be different. Okay, so now coming to our simple case that we did. So earlier when we were taking the reported EBITDA of 60 million, the same case that you did the analysis, not me. You calculated EBITDA as 60 million and with adjustment, the adjusted EBITDA was 67.3. Coming back. So now if we want to say, what is the valuation of the company? Multiple in both the cases we are taking as 10. Yeah, the question EBITDA project approximately 210 point. What will be multiple? Wait, hold on. I'll just let you know. So what happens? This in the both the cases, the EBITDA we have seen, multiple is the same. How the valuation is changing? In case 1, it is 600 million. In the case of case 2, it is 673 million. So the additional 73 million value is the additional value, which is almost a 12% difference a company is able to, I would say, create that difference only by using this adjusted EBITDA. So adjustment matters significantly in M&A and financing decisions because it is changing your valuation. You are able to get 73 million more. Now coming to the question of Amit. 2026 EBITDA projections approximately 210.6 billion. What will be the multiple? See, multiple as we did in the last slide. It depends upon what is my industry. And as I mentioned earlier, the exact multiple for your company in that industry is done by the people who are doing this deal for you. The P, it's known as, private equity people who do this valuation. They will calculate looking at what is your,
We seem to have lost ma'am.
Some connectivity issue seems like we can wait a minute. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
No, there's no audio loss and all. If anyone is facing problem, please check internet at your side.
अनिल आपको क्या she lost connectivity Anil.
नहीं
टेलीमेट्री
नहीं, मैम का वीडियो मुझे अभी तक दिख रहा था।
टेलीमेट्री
आपको क्या दिख रहा है अनिल
I think you have a slow
Connectivity
internet
is
अभी
connection.
वो
not
स्क्रीन गया, जस्ट अभी वो स्क्रीन गया, अभी तक दिख रहा था मुझे।
वो
Tele-
स्टिल
Yeah.
दिख रहा था ना, कनेक्टिविटी नहीं है तो स्टिल था।
जी जी जी।
That's because your internet is slow, Anil. Streaming is slow.
Maybe.
हो जाता है, मे बी पावर वेंट ऑफ, समथिंग चेंज ओवर, डीजी चेंज बैकअप आने में कभी कभी टाइम 1 मिनट लगता है ना, फिर रीस्टार्ट होने में।
let us stay here for some time, I'm sure
Yeah.
she will come back.
Maybe the power went off and then the DG backup, it has to restart. It takes a minute or two.
We'll discover.
That's it. But the topic is interesting and
but I mean I know I don't know but people who probably have
Hello?
have enterprises.
yeah, Kalyanji, you were sharing something.
Yeah, so what I was saying is the factors that get into this calculation, right? They are they can probably be anybody's guess, right? I mean, so that was what was going through my mind. Now, if you talk about depreciation and amortization, right? So depreciation could be, I probably give one depreciation amount, to someone, and then I probably give another amount to someone else, right? So, and in this particular context, I mean, that's what, because we're all here, it's a safe space. And then see, when I'm buying insurance for my, doing the renewal of the insurance for my vehicle, I show a different depreciated amount. I mean, so that my renewal insurance premium is
Premium impact
less,
is lower. Yes.
is lower, right? I mean, I get typically these guys, what's that?
The
What's
the
that?
insurance agents or
Yeah, Policy Bazaar. I mean,
Evaluators.
if you know the
yeah.
Policy Bazaar, if you see the Policy Bazaar, I mean, so if you select the depreciation amount, based on the depreciation amount, the insurance premium changes, right? So yeah, I think Hemlata ji is back. Looks like okay. So
Yeah, sorry, my network just dropped.
That's
that's
Ah.
okay.
Emma, I'll take a minute.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just joining from my phone.
Yeah, I'll take a minute to show the
Wait,
video.
yeah. Okay,
Oh,
please.
DVD.
Wait. I think now my network has come on my laptop also. Just hold on. I'll just show it. Just wait, Geeta. I
Ah.
think now the network. I don't know why there was
Okay.
a
If
dip.
you want me, I'm assist.
Wait, no, it's okay. It's okay. I'll do it.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
So Kalyanji, I think I can guess your question, how does it work, the evaluation? So having worked for Deloitte, right, I realized that there is something called authorized M&A evaluators, merger and acquisitions. They go through a rigorous process of identifying, analyzing, and reporting the EBITDA and all other parameters for us to give us the report. So based on the report given by these M&A evaluators, the investors or the buyers would come forward and say they bid for it. So it all depends on preferably the big fours like Deloitte, EY, KPMG, and PwC, and there are few plus coming around. So they are the ones who usually bring the valuation report and publish it to the world to come and make the purchases that are required.
okay. Let's. I think Hemlata ji is back. We'll probably
she's
let them
back.
continue. Okay. So right.
We'll take the questions towards the end. Is the screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So we were talking about, what are the areas where EBITDA is not able to give us the complete picture? What are the things which EBITDA is ignoring? So as we talked about, that it ignores the capital expenditure. Whatever new equipment we are buying, whatever the new facilities, R&D, so it is not taking into account the capital expenditure. So a better metric is free cash flow. So why we are trying to understand all these parameters? So just, going a little back. So EBITDA is though giving us the I would say complete picture about the operational efficiency. But other than operational efficiency, also we want to know the complete health, not only the cardiac health. We want to know the complete body health. So complete health, if we want to know, then we will follow a balanced scorecard approach. So EBITDA we will take, that is the first thing. And other than EBITDA, we will talk about few other things which are required. So we will take free cash flow also. Tomorrow we will, next session whenever we are having, we'll talk about all the cash flows. Because what happens, income we have seen, revenue we have seen. What happens, the revenue, we make a sale and the revenue is locked in. But is the money coming into the bank? If the payment cycle is say 60 days, so that money will come after 60 days. So this free cash flow available, cash is king, we all know. So cash is there or not, that is very important. This cash will determine what we are going to do with the other decisions of the organization. So free cash flow is very, very significant. Then we talked about two companies, one has high debt, one has low debt. Through EBITDA ignores this debt payments. We saw that in one we got 100 million and one we got 95, which were very comparable. So, whereas in one case, there is huge debt repayment. So then we will, better metric is unlevered free cash flow. This, when we cover this chapter on cash flow, we'll dive deep into what these terms actually mean for us. Then is our cash timing issues, whether it is accrual based system or cash is stuck in our receivables. So then we will talk about operating cash flow. So all the cash flows we will cover in subsequent sessions. And then yesterday we talked about, what is the quality of the earning. That's also very important. So we will talk about, when we talk about balanced scorecard approach, it's important. EBITDA is the first factor. Then cash flows, which true cash which we are generating. Then we talked about, EBITDA margin and EBITDA are the same. Then we talked about the financial leverage, debt to EBITDA, debt serviceability ratio. And then return on invested capital, which is our capital efficiency. This also we will talk about later. What is capital? What is capital structure? What is debt? What is equity? What is the return on invested capital? If I have two or multiple projects, how should a CEO decide which project the cash should be allocated? The capital allocation decisions we will be talking further. So from the today's session, what our key takeaways are. So we all, looked at that EBITDA is the operating truth. It removes the financing, tax, and non-cash distortion. Then we learnt about adjusted EBITDA, which shows the normalized performance by removing one-time items to see what are the true recurring earnings. We saw that valuation of the companies hinges on EBITDA. Enterprise value is adjusted EBITDA into multiple. And EBITDA matters for lending because banks talk and they care about what is your debt serviceability, which is the debt to EBITDA ratio. They want to see this because they want to understand your risk profile. If your debt serviceability is good, they want to give you loan. They are worried that you will not be able to service the debt, they don't want to give you loan. And EBITDA has its limits. So we created a complete balanced scorecard. Financial metrics, debt metrics, ROIC. So that gives us the complete picture and health of an organization. And we saw that adjustments drive value. Small adjustments, whatever we did, it can create significant M&A value differences. When we did the adjusted EBITDA from 60, we became 67.3. So, and when the multiple was 10, it was multiplied by 10. So it brought in a valuation difference of about 12%. So this can, impact the valuation of the company. So this is one question for you. Just look at it and put your answers in the chat. It is a kind of a recap. Whatever we have done, just a recap, and so that you are clear. Whatever you have done, it will just seep into your mind. So you are now, you are a CEO and you are thinking about buying a company. And the seller says that, their business earns 50 million in EBITDA. but really earn 65 million when you adjust for one-time stuff. So that's a 15 million, dollars difference, which is a 30% markup. So now your job is, to figure out, is this legit or are they trying to, pull a fast one? So that's your job as a CEO. What could possibly, account for that 15 million in adjustments? Think about it. Maybe they closed a factory, they have a huge severance cost. Maybe they got sued. Maybe they bought some another company. Because $15 million is a big money. Think about it. No, Preeti, not credit rating. We didn't talk about the credit rating. Yeah, looks fishy. I agree. Check the industry standard is 30%. We saw that, 30% is normally not there. 15 to 20% is the standard norm. In certain far off cases, it may be 25%, but 30% is too high. Yeah, if something, they may have bought a company or sold something, so then there is a possibility. Yes, need the breakup of adjustment, that's for sure. Need to understand the factor that contribute to this. Wouldn't they reveal why? Yeah, they would. This is just a question I heard put to, provoke your thought process. Good, good. I think good thought provoking. Let's go to, the next. Would you trust this figure? Ask yourself, did something, when you want to see that whether you want to trust it or not. Perfect. You will verify or check it. How will you check it? You will try to see what happened the year prior to that year. So then you go into dig into the history and the year before. If the company has one time cost every single year, they are not really one time. That's a red flag. You all agree? So now the question is, what due diligence would you perform? How would you verify that? Would you hire an independent accountant to dig through everything? Every receipt, every contract, every explanation? It's like, hiring a house inspector. Before you want to buy a house, you just want to validate and check everything is okay. Yeah, consultant. Yes. How would this affect your offer price? How would this affect your price? So if you trust, based on the scorecard, very right. So you will calculate a EV. Say the multiple is 10. I'm giving you a hint. Then would you take that, the valuation is 650, or would you say you will trust only 55 million and say the valuation is your offer will drop to 550? So that's $100 million swing. So that is what, that's what the consultants who do this valuations do. They study each and every line item and understand what is the real pricing and how things have to move. So just I'll just, before we move to the questions. So this is the question here. I just want to, do a quick poll. How do you feel now after the session? in between, I saw that, there were some flips, and then you people are answering a lot of questions now. So how is it going for you all?
Very good session, madam. I am really enjoying it. The pace was good. The content is good. The kind of questions that you have put up on the screen is making us to think. It is engaging also. I am really liking the sessions. Excellent session. Thank you. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank
time.
you, Jasurya ji. Thank you.
Surya, where is your camera? I mean, pointing to, I think it's in a reverse direction going to the wall.
It will be like that only, madam. It is intentional. I have applied
Okay.
oil on my hair. It won't look so good if I come with that oily.
Then fine.
I am having headache, so I applied oil today.
I was
That's
wondering
why
what this screen is about. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
yeah. So
Perfectly
sorry
fine
for
then.
that.
No,
Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine.
the appearance is not so great. So
No worries, Jasurya ji. And wishing you, you are able to take care. And listening to all these financial jargons, I may be adding to your headache.
no, not at all, madam. No.
I'll
You know
probably go
what?
next.
In reality, only your head is visible.
Yes. I can position it
Any
well.
other question anyone is having, or you want to,
Yeah. So
any
yes.
comment or remark?
What would be interesting, Hemlata ji, is if let's say you take this is Kalyan here, okay. So if you take the example of let's say NVIDIA or Microsoft, and I assume these metrics get reported to the street as well, right? I mean, do they get reported to the street as a part of
Yeah,
their?
you can check the balance sheet. So a good idea you have given. So this, I want to give all of you an exercise. Sounds very interesting to me. I was thinking to, ask you all that look at your own company's balance sheet and, calculate EBITDA, adjusted EBITDA and everything. But it's a good, it's a good exercise for all of you to choose a company. Let's take one company only. Whatever you all, discuss, decide and choose. And then
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA. Okay, do for NVIDIA. Looks like you have invested in NVIDIA.
I should have. I didn't. I mean, okay. I probably should have invested 14 years back when I had the opportunity, but I didn't. So, okay. So people who have invested back then have become millionaires now. So, yeah. So what I want to understand is, the fundamentals. I mean, let's say when you look at the pattern, when you look at sort of, year-on-year comparison of these metrics, does a pattern emerge, and does that pattern tell you that the company is probably on a rocket ship?
Yes,
Or
it
the
will.
company is.
It will really reveal lot of such things. It's a kind of, I would say, a horoscope of an organization. How year on year it's moving, and it's a good. I would, request everyone. Kalyanji has given us a wonderful, food for thought. All of you take one example, and as a group, you can, present in one of the classes. That would be a wonderful. So one of you take, pull out as a group. One of you pull out all the details. One of you do some example on the, research on P&L. One calculates EBITDA. So all the concepts there that we are learning, each one take one portion of it and, present. That way your learning will be grounded also, and it will, become a good case study for all of us.
So I tell you, so this is the reason. See, all of us here are on a mission here, and one of the things that I have learned is when you, let's say, when you are in an interview and when you talk about the financial aspects, right, and you sort of look into the numbers, it seems that impresses the interviewers quite a bit. That's what I've learned. So the other question I had is, I know I'm probably taking a lot of time, is what is the scope for fudging? Okay, so when you talk about depreciation, when you
This is
talk about
insider's question.
taxes,
Insider question. There is lot of
right? So
scope for everything. I won't, dive deep into this, but yes, there is lot of scope for everything, anything and everything under the roof.
okay,
So you
okay.
all are from IT, you know the Satyam's case.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was an employee then when it happened, and thanks to PwC.
I
No,
was
no,
also
but
part of Metas at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
no, but then, I understand that there could probably something like this, but wouldn't audits
So
catch this?
auditor PwC was there, I think, that time, and they were also part of it. So these, see, is the recording working, or have you stopped
1 minute.
recording?
Still
I
going
can
on.
stop. I will stop.
I don't want to record all these things.
Oh. You want to record or you want me to stop?
Stop.
Okay.